Happy Wednesday, fellow streakers. And it is actually Wednesday when we're recording this.
It actually is a Wednesday.
We're not doing it on another day. We are doing it on the day that it will be produced and published to the world live. And by the way, Jamie, did you know that we have thousands of listeners all over the world?
Nope, I did not know that.
And I know that you don't like me to bring that up right up at the beginning of the podcast because it makes you a little nervous.
Yes. But we really do.
We do. And one of the reasons I brought that up is because we're getting new listeners all the time, and they may or may not know why it is we do this podcast. And I thought it might be nice just quickly to review and talk just for a second about why it is we do this podcast. What is it about this that we decided to do a long time ago? Because we are now into hundreds of episodes where you and I have just basically been having a conversation, and the theme that the conversation has been around has been streaking.
Yep, all the time.
So why did we decide to do this? I mean, what is it in your mind that we decided to do this on a regular basis? I'll tell you mine.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The reason why I felt like we wanted to do this is, one, because I enjoy having the conversation with you about...
We enjoy talking about this a lot.
I mean, we're out on walks and runs and everything else, and typically it'll come up and we'll talk about it.
And why do we like talking about it? I mean, you and I like talking in general, but why do we like talking about streaking?
So the second reason is what it did for our relationship. Yep. So we've been talking about relationships in the month of February, and the next thing, the reason why I love streaking is because, one, what it did for me personally, and then two, what it's done for our relationship and how much we've enjoyed it. I mean, that's where we really established our pace, and what we do with our pace is in the context of streaking.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. I feel the same way. What it's done for me personally as an individual, and then what it's done for me in building my relationships, specifically with you, and then next with our children and with our families. Which
would be the next thing that we're actually going to talk about today is the relationship that we have with our families. So we started the podcast. I've always enjoyed the medium of podcasting.
You have. I remember this book that we bought like 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I know exactly the book that you're talking about too.
For several years on how to do a great podcast. It wasn't a podcast for dummies, was it?
No, it wasn't. I mean, there is one out there, a podcast for dummies, and I actually looked at that one. But it was before that. I was trying to figure out what equipment you would get. I mean, this is long before podcast became
yes. So
what it was.
You've always loved this medium.
And this medium, and the reason I love this medium is it gives us an opportunity to express some of the thoughts and feelings that we have in a way that we can complete the thought, complete the sentence. It's not clipped into 3-minute or 2-minute sound bites, even though there's a place for those.
Right. And you can hear people's intonation, and we can go off of each other. It's genuinely like a conversation, which I enjoy.
And I enjoy that too. So that's another reason why we started. I think the other thing that I felt strongly about is when we uncovered streaks, and you look at it in the lexicon of behavioral change, professional development, personal development, streaks are hidden under habits and covered by goals. And habits give this illusion that you somehow can make your life automatic and just keep growing all the time. What I've recognized throughout my life and through our marriage of 30 years is that if we were to set it on autopilot, our marriage on autopilot, I don't think that it would stay on course. I think that it would, it's not like an airplane where you have this computer that's checking things as you go along to make sure that you're staying true to the compass. This, I guess, streaks became the, if you will, autopilot. In other words, I'm checking against it every day to see, am I on course to be who I want to be?
I feel like it's I don't know if it's autopilot. I suppose there's some part of it as you start streaking that does become a little bit autopilot. But to me, I was even thinking about it this morning, and I thought, I check my app every day on the things that I've done. And so it's this conscious, deliberate checking of who I want to be every day. And there's a lot of mornings that I wake up in the morning and I think, okay, I want to drink my water first thing this morning, and I want to take my vitamins first thing this morning. And I run through my streaks for the day, and I think how I'm going to carry those out through the day. There's other days that are crazy, and sometimes I don't think that way right at the beginning, but I'm impressed how often I do think that way more now. The longer I do my streaks, the more I start to think throughout the day how I want to get them done and looking for ways and times to do them, and even sometimes better than just doing them. Oftentimes that happens a lot more than it used to. I was going to mention when you were talking about covered by habits. No, you said
hidden by habits
and
covered by goals.
So you recently wrote a letter for the Streak Runners Association newsletter.
Thank you, Streak Runners Association, for allowing us to write the article and also to publish out there. You are the original genesis of what we came up with, the streak.
So if you've read our book, we discovered streaking through
Shameless
reading
plug.
about.
Our book is available at Amazon and also Barnes & Noble, as well as any indie bookseller out there. You can also get it via ebook or audio.
This commercial has been paid for by
Jeff and Jamie. Or Streaking LLC.
So it was
Shameless.
interesting. Shameless. So you wrote them an article and sent them this article for their newsletter, their monthly newsletter that they did. So I was reading through their newsletter, and it's very inspiring if you love running, because it's all these different people that have streaks for running. And I stopped on this one little clip of a family, and they had their son that was running, and they had asked questions. They had 3 children, and they asked all 3 children, what keeps you running? And one of the younger children said, well, it's just a habit now. And I thought about it, and I thought, I don't think it is a habit. I think you run because of the streak. You want to keep your streak alive. You have a streak run that you're a part of an association of, and you don't want that to be broken.
It is absolutely intentional.
It is not a habit. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, but we didn't have another word for it. And what he was saying is that it's become a part of my life now, mm-hmm. that running is something I do, and it's become a part of, but keeping that streak alive is what really propels us.
And that is, I feel that it's important to make the differentiation so that I don't get frustrated when the repetitive action that I do intentionally does not become automatic.
Right.
And I'm frustrated that it doesn't become automatic. Speaking of, so there's two thoughts that came to mind. The Streak Runners Association and what you were reading about the family that ran together. Isn't that an interesting streak to have as a family?
Yes.
That you all run or walk at least 1 mile. And I think theirs is run at least 1 mile daily.
Yes, because this particular family is a part of the Streak Runners Association, which means they run at least a mile every day,
single day,
and have done it for at least over a year. Everyone, because you can't be a part of that association until you've done that. So that's what they're doing.
Actually, I was talking to Mark Washburn, and he said you can be a member of the association. However, you cannot have your streak listed in the registry.
Oh, gotcha.
Until it's hit. And I didn't understand that either. I thought you had to have a streak of a year or more to be a part of the United States Running Streak Association. So I signed us up. We're part of the United States Running Streak Association. Our streak will just never be listed on the streak registry.
Okay.
Because you have to hit the qualification that you run at least 1 mile daily. And
every
do
day
that
for
for 365 days in order to be in order to have your streak registered. So, but speaking of that, and thinking of a family that streaks together stays together.
That was good.
That's what I thought about when I read their family as far as what they did. And isn't it interesting the different places where you and I have traveled when we've gone out on a walk or run? How beautiful all the different places are in this world.
It's one of my favorite things about the streak is that it gets me outside wherever we go, wherever we are. And I've been able to see things that I know I would not have seen if I did not have that streak.
Absolutely. Another thing that we were doing on Sunday night, we had a family chat, family fireside with some of our family that wanted to hear a little bit more about streaking. And they were gathered together in Idaho and in Utah and here in Georgia. And you and I were talking about streaking. And after we presented the laws of streaking, laughably simple, law number 1, no record, no streak, law number 2, and create a community, law number 3. And we talked through those and why it is that we have those laws. And that's another reason why I think we do the podcast, is to continue to reinforce the methodology and to say, what is it that you need to do in order to be successful at a streak, and take all kinds of different scenarios and show how to apply it.
And to explore it as you're in the journey, because different questions and different things come up as you wherever you are in that journey, if you're beginning or if you've been doing it for a while, or now you're taking it from my streaks to family streaks. There's different things that are fun to talk about.
So with that, and exactly where I wanted to go, we had the question, how do you keep your streaks alive when you're on vacation?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been thinking a lot about that question. And this is more of a methodology moment as far as how to keep your streaks alive when you're on vacation. Once I started streaking, I didn't really think about how I keep it alive on a vacation, or maybe said a different way. I didn't think about that I wasn't going to keep my streaks on on vacation, that I was actually going to do them. But they had to be simple enough in order for me to be able to do them. And the dependency of that streak, in other words, I couldn't rely on something at home to be able to complete whatever the streak was. So, for example, reading one paragraph of a nonfiction book daily. I needed to make sure I had the book with me, but that's a small dependency versus something like mow the lawn once weekly.
Right.
I mean, I don't know why you'd have that streak, but
if you did, it would be a hard thing to keep if you went on vacation.
Because the dependency was such that I would not be able to keep that streak.
Exactly.
And the other thing that came to me, and the reason why I wanted to bring this specifically up right now, is the reason why I do streaks and why I want to do them wherever I am and whenever I am is because of who I want to be. And the streaks don't stop no matter what the routine is or if the environment has been disrupted. That's what I love about streaking. And that's one of the reasons why I love doing the podcast, is because this is an informal streak. We actually have never set it as a streak. However, since we really started doing it, we have not missed for quite some time a Saturday or a Wednesday publish date.
Right. We haven't.
And that's pretty amazing. I mean, when you think about it, that's a streak that we have together that we haven't. We
haven't said it formally because we haven't committed to it. But it's definitely.
I'd love to ask you why, but that takes us down a whole nother road that we can talk about on a different podcast.
That's an offline topic.
No, I'm more why it is that we have decided to set it as a streak. But again, not set it as a streak. I think because that is something that we can talk about on a different podcast at a different time. On vacation, or when the routine is disrupted, the whole reason I have a streak is because I don't want disruption to come in the journey to who I want to be. And
that's what I love, is that this isn't just something I do, but it is who I want to be. So my streak of wanting to be a great mother isn't something that...
Your B statement of wanting to be a great... Isn't something.
Did I say a streak of being a great mother? My B statement of wanting to be...
You are a great mother, and I think you do have a streak
great mother.
Of being a great mother.
The B statement of who I want to be, a great mother, a person who continues to stay educated, a person who's kind. Those are things that I don't want to stop doing or being when I leave my environment of being home. It's something I want to be in all of the environments. And that's part of what I love about streaking, is that it gives you a methodology and a way to be who you want to be in all the different environments that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important because our environments are changing all the time. And so we were going to talk too about this, being able to bring it from this unconscious to this conscious realm. Yes. And especially in relation to, as we've been talking about relationships, this week kind of talking about family relationships right. with your mom and your dad, or your children, or your siblings. How can streaking help in those areas?
Because sometimes you can put those areas on autopilot.
Right.
And think, you know what, my relationship with my children, I'm just going to set that on autopilot. They know I love them. I know they love me. We're good to go there. Or my relationship with my mom. My dad passed away, so the relationship with him is more of a spiritual one.
Mm-hmm.
But with mom, I mean, still alive, and still, I still want to maintain a relationship there. In the busyness of life, sometimes those relationships on autopilot, again, start to go off course.
And isn't it interesting that sometimes those relationships that are the most important to us and the closest to us are also the easiest to take for granted and assume that they will be okay, and maybe not put as much intentionality in those, because you're like, oh, they know I love them, or I know
one thing that you do that I love and that I've appreciated through the years is you have said that you reserve energy for when I get home. In other words, you don't run yourself so ragged through the day that you don't have energy when I get home.
Do you have things from years ago? Maybe everybody, I'm sure everybody has this. You were someplace, somewhere, and somebody said something, and it was so profound that it's just stuck with you.
Yes, I have.
That was one of those moments. Is I was somewhere, I can't even remember where I was. It was something where it was a forum of a group of women. Maybe it was a church setting. But anyway, that was, a woman had said that when we were talking about how you can help, how you can have a better relationship with your husband. And that was one of the things that she said, I have found that I can work all day long and give all of my energy to everything else, and at the end of the day be completely depleted. And that I have to make a conscious effort to reserve energy so that when I'm together with my husband at the end of the day or in the evening, that I'm not completely depleted, that I've saved some energy to give to him. And that stuck with me. That really stuck with me.
I've always felt that way. I mean, granted, we're not perfect at it. However, I think that we've been conscious about reserving some energy for, and this is why, for you and I, but also for our children. Because when I was traveling a lot before we went into the 2020 COVID year, I remember thinking that I needed to be able to sleep on the road so that when I got home, I wasn't just completely thrashed and not able to give them the time and attention that I wanted to and foster the relationship that I have with them, and that I wanted to continue to do that. It's one of the reasons why I set the intentional streak of contacting them at least one time daily and then connecting with them. In other words, raising it even one level higher of consciousness and saying, looking eyeball to eyeball with them and talking with them, even if it was for just a few seconds.
So I love that streak, the first streak was make contact with at least one of my children daily. And there's this process in a streak that the first thing that you're doing when you set a streak, it's obviously something you've been thinking about. It's something that's important to you, but it's also something that's not happening at some level. Otherwise, it's not at the level that you want it to be at in consistency. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to set a streak around it.
Right.
And so being patient and recognizing that the first part of the journey of a streak is taking it from this place of I'm thinking about it occasionally, or I'm thinking about it but not actually doing it. It takes time to bring it from this unconscious realm to now I am thinking about it and doing this small, simple thing daily. And then when you had been doing that for, I don't know how long you'd had
years.
That first streak.
Yeah.
Before now you were consciously thinking about making contact with one of your children every day.
Yeah.
And though it wasn't a habit, it was something that you had been doing consistently, and you knew you were going to continue to do it because of that streak. And that empowered you to take it now to a different place where you're like, I want to even build on that, connect with or contact each child and take it to a place where I'm like, I want to connect with them. That is a neat thing to go. So recognizing of being patient with that journey, being patient with it's okay to start with I'm bringing it from unconscious to conscious, and then trusting that through that consistency, it will build, it will continue to grow and help you grow.
As you mentioned consciousness and taking it up to the level of consciousness, that's what I think that we are striving to do with our family relationships and streaking, is to have it so that it's part of our mind share all the time.
Right.
Whereas when it goes on autopilot, it's really not part of my conscious mind share, and it can get lost amidst the number of different things that I've got going.
And you know the other thing that happens when something is on autopilot? You miss things. So today, I'm going to take today for example.
Oh boy.
We were driving to the airport early this morning.
Our routine got interrupted. If you think about it, our morning routine was totally interrupted, and not for a bad reason, for a good reason.
For a good reason. But actually, I was going to talk about as we were driving.
Yeah.
You've driven to the airport
a
ton of times, hundreds of times.
Yes.
We were talking, though, and we missed the exit to the airport.
Yes.
We had to flip the U. Oftentimes, when
we didn't
something
do that on the freeway into traffic. We found a very safe way.
Thank you, Google Maps, for helping us figure out how to do it effectively. What I was going to say is that when we missed that exit, when you're on autopilot, you often don't notice things until afterwards. It's after the fact. After you've missed something, you're like, oh, I missed that. One of my favorite things that I've noticed about streaking is how often I've had opportunities that I'm like, I would not have seen that opportunity if I hadn't been streaking. It doesn't happen all the time,
Right.
but because I have that particular streak every day,
Yeah.
I did something with that streak, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, an opportunity opened up that I was able to take advantage of because I had done that simple, small thing daily, and it had allowed me to see that opportunity before the opportunity was passed.
That's really
so I
neat.
feel like autopilot, you see things in the rearview mirror and you're like, oh, rats, I missed that. Streaking allows you to see it in the moment and be like, oh, I'm going to take advantage of that opportunity because I opened the app or I made that text message.
You're
or
driving the car looking out the front windshield rather than in the rear view mirror.
Yes, and
which is
you
what we did this
see-
morning as I looked in the rear view mirror as the exit went by.
Yep. We're like, I just missed the exit. That is autopilot sometimes.
Yeah.
If you're and I love that streaking has allowed me to see opportunities. So when you are setting streaks with your families and or to build relationships with your family, there are going to be opportunities that you're going to start to see because you have
You had a couple of streaks that I wanted to bring up just before we end our podcast. And one of them was interesting, the 10-second hug daily
someone had to give a 10-second hug to one of their children daily
as one of their streaks.
as one of their streaks.
Wouldn't that be
Another one,
interesting to, just grab hold in 10 seconds of a hug daily?
Mm-hmm.
What would that do for your relationship? What's another one?
Another one was to have a closed door interview with each child weekly.
So one closed door interview with each child weekly.
And that kind of buys into those love language opportunities too, where you're giving them undivided attention. Imagine if a child knew that they were going to have a chance to talk to you weekly.
Mm-hmm.
That
Even
would
if it
be
was
amazing.
for just a few minutes.
Right.
It's just
Another one
closing
that-
the door and talking to them and telling them, I love you.
Right.
I appreciate you.
Is
I
it,
want to help you in
"How are
whatever
you
way that I
doing?"
can.
Another one was an older gentleman had a streak to call his mom, who was elderly, every week so that he would make that contact with her each week and she could count on that.
What I see is that those are like 2 or 3 streaks in a slew of streaks that you can set in improving and increasing and strengthening your family relationships. I would say absolutely go out and do it. I mean, find who you want to be. You want to be a father that's involved, a mother that's active, a
wonderful aunt.
brother, aunt, uncle, daughter, friend, whatever it is, and decide what couple of streaks you want to set to make that happen. Well, we've enjoyed talking with you
We
today.
have loved this. I love talking about how streaking can help your relationships.
Absolutely. Hopefully you have a wonderful Wednesday. We're going to try to have a wonderful Wednesday. Right now we're remodeling the whole house. No, not really, but kind of getting into it enough. So until we talk again, which will be Saturday, enjoy yourselves and reach out to us if you have a family streak that you think might work at Jeffrey, Jefffery, at streakingmastery.com or
Jamie, Jami, at streakingmastery.com.
until we talk again.
Keep streaking.
It's too simple.